Hello, everybody. Woo! It's been almost a week that we haven't seen each other live. Well, I don't really see you, but I feel your presence here. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for reading the newsletters and news briefings, which is very important, and I encourage you to do so because it's first of all, it's free. There's no paywall. My main intention is to provide factual information, so please read it Monday through Friday. It's sent right into your email box, and then on Sundays we have no politics edition. And no, this is not my shoulders, this is the chair. I was like, wow, I'm huge. No. Okay. On another note, thank you for engaging with my coverage of United Nations General Assembly, the 80th one, throughout this week. It's been a long journey. I am exhausted indeed, but it was really important to be there and to take you with me and to tell you what is happening really behind the scenes. So today, first I'm going to say hi, and then some folks were commenting. And again, please comment, please ask questions, engage. This is very important and makes my job even more so delightful. Okay, so we're going to dive into today's new ghost. So we're going to dive into today's news, national and mainly global news, also yesterday's news. But if you haven't read yesterday's news briefing, please do so, because we won't be able to get into everything. And then today, or for the most part of it, and then we're going to get through what happened today. And then I share some my takeaways of United Nations General Assembly. And I would ask you also to put some questions, so I make sure to cover everything and answer your questions. Okay? All right, let's say hi real quick. Hi, Chris. Hello. Hi, Michael. Yes, guys. Hello. Missed you guys. Last time I was live on Friday? Yeah, and then it's 4 days. Yeah. Okay, so we have breaking news. United Nations General Council was voting today on whether to accept the resolution by China and Russia, and they just voted against it. So here's the deal, and I'm reading it. The United Nations Security Council has voted against a resolution drafted by Russia and China to delay by 6 months the reimposition of sanctions on Iran. In 4-9 vote with 2 abstentions, world leaders on Friday opted to reimpose sanctions owing to Iran's nuclear program. The sanctions are set to snap back as of 8 p.m. New York time on Saturday, which is tomorrow. So the sanctions are going back on Iran, and obviously that started with Trump pretty much destroying the deal. But having said that, the Security Council just blocked this resolution, so sanctions will be imposed, as you just heard, on Saturday. Now, let's get into European situation. Europe is now pushing back against President Trump's rhetoric, where he said, look, basically with his tweet, and I know a lot of people misunderstood the notion, there was a lot of praise as to Ukraine should acquire its territory. Obviously, Ukraine should acquire its territory, including Crimea, because Crimea is Ukraine. But it ends, that infamous tweet at this point ends with basically, okay, Europe will fight for it. We will still sell weapons if we decide so, right? To Europe, and then NATO will handle it. And essentially, he physically, literally, wished everybody good luck and said, you're going to do well. And so then the questions were raised as to why, well, US is obviously part of NATO, so why is Trump saying, well, NATO and EU will handle it and we wish you good luck? So are we not part of it? We're kind of part of it. So today, Vice President of European Commission, Kaja Kallas, addressed exactly that notion. She said, well, Europe cannot carry Ukraine alone, she told Politico, reminding that it was Trump himself who promised to stop the fighting. NATO does not exist without the USA, in the biggest ally in NATO. So when we talk about what NATO should do, it also means what America should do, Callas emphasized, which is yes, and she's right. Now, will it somehow let Trump change his opinion? I don't think so. But it has to be stated, and this was, better later than never. Now, as to Russian sabotage, let's dive into what I covered in yesterday's newsletter, which actually came in at 5 a.m. this morning, so long day. But I just want to recap a little bit what has been happening prior, right? So, as to yesterday and day before yesterday. So NATO, Russia, and airspace confrontations. Russia's ambassador to France warned that, quote, there will be a war between NATO and Russia if Russian aircraft is shut down. And that message sort of presents a dilemma, if you will, right? So on one hand, Russian aircraft can fly around allies, right, in their territories for 12 minutes, skim oil rigs below safe distances, or pass German frigates at 100 meters, while NATO largely just watches. So responding over intrusion or to intrusion of your own airspace would then be seen as an escalation. I mean, how bendy do you have to be to stretch yourself this far to make that actually make sense? Now, Turkey, 10 years ago, shot Russian airplane in just 17 seconds. There was no retribution. If anything, Putin holds water to Erdoğan. So NATO Security General Mark Rutte backed President Trump's call to respond firmly. Quote, I support Trump's call to shoot down Russian planes that violate NATO airspace. My question here is, by whom? Is that Article 5 and US is voting yes, this should be shot? And I always tell you, Article 5 has 3 components to it. 1, all have to agree without anybody vetoing that, yes, there was an attack. 2, the attack requires a response. And 3, on the response itself. So will Trump do that? Given the indication that he sort of tends to go towards Kremlin, I don't think so. So is he accounting on the countries itself, like Turkey, for instance, that shot Russian airplane without any agreement with Russia? So I guess so. And that brings the other developments that I'm going to highlight in just a second. So Rutte also dismissed Lavrov horse's face statement that it's also going to be a war. So he said, literally, let's not focus too much on him. And then he reassured that the supply of American weapons to Ukraine, financed by Washington's allies, will continue uninterrupted. Seeing is believing. Now, as to cyber and drone attacks in Europe. So Berlin airport suffered a cyber attack on Thursday. Just last night, 4 airports in Denmark were shut down due to drone sightings. And President Macron met with the Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, where he said, quote, I expressed to her France's full solidarity with Denmark following the repeated intrusions by unidentified drones affecting the operations of Copenhagen Airport. France is ready to provide its support to Denmark to assess the situation and contribute to the security of Danish airspace. Now, Also, what happened? Let's quickly recap. NORAD scrambled jets to intercept 4 Russian military planes off Alaska. This was not U.S. airspace. It was near. It was international waters, but it was still near. Poland is preparing to allow its military to destroy Russian targets in Ukrainian airspace without prior NATO or EU approval. And this is the point where the leaders do understand what Trump means. Kaja Kallas, yes, deservingly so, absolutely right, stated that, U.S. is part of NATO, so you gotta, honey buddy, consider yourself and, act accordingly. But everybody does see the reality and what is happening, not just in the background, but really in front of our eyes. So now Poland is changing their own constitutional rules, law, essentially allowing them to defend themselves without seeking NATO's approval, exactly to the point where I just said the 3 components of Article 5 of NATO will present Trump with 3 opportunities to veto it. Now, Romania has given mission commanders the authority to down any military aircraft entering Romanian airspace. Civilian aircraft decisions will remain with the defense minister. So Romania, same story. Turkey deployed an advanced AWACS radar plane to Lithuania, signaling bolstered Baltic defenses. Now, this is Turkey. Again, Erdoğan decides for himself. Now, Sweden's defense minister, Johnson, reaffirmed, quote, Sweden has the right to defend its airspace using force if necessary, and it will do so. So now you have it. Poland, Romania, Sweden, all are advocating for it. Also, the president of Finland, Stubb, when he addressed the United Nations General Assembly a couple of days ago, he stated that, look, we have to rethink the idea of vetoes. So if one country is repeatedly murdering people and hence violating UN Charter, why are they still in in the UN Security Council? Why do they, most importantly, hold the veto power? And obviously, we're talking about this fine establishment here at the UN Security Council. Why do these people murder Ukrainians daily? Civilians, Ukrainians, why do they do this for 3+ years, and now they're still holding a veto power? How is that possible? And then, of course, if you're going to have other countries misbehaving, you're going to end up in this shit show. Okay, so now let's get to today's news. Let's if you have any comments or questions, let me know. James says hello. Hi, James. Hello. Hi, Ben. What does everyone think will happen in Moldovan parliamentary elections this weekend? The difference right now is 0.2%. The problem there is that Sandu party is, of course, pro-European Union and pro-Western, right, party. But then other parties are pro-Russian. So Russia did invest a lot in that. They did, I will highlight what they did invest, but certainly they used, of course, the propaganda machine, but they also now reportedly use church. So they use the Orthodox Church to promote Russian values. And they say, well, if you vote for Maya Sandu, this is a sin. So they go down to that level. Chris is hello. Hey, Michael. I think most European countries will aid each other with or without NATO. Hopefully. And we'll discuss it soon. So let's talk about so today's news. Europe pushes back on no, this is not today's news. Now this is today's news. No. All right, wait a second. No. I have 2 things open that are exactly the same. So let's use this opportunity to put any questions that you are interested in for today. And I will bring this up. Okay. No, I have the right thing. All right. So, all right. So, global energy security is also at crossroads. So Fatih Birol, who is executive director of International Energy Agency, right? We often speak about it. IEA, right? That's what we refer to as. And often it is very connected to Iran. right? So whatever the now sanctions will be, this is very much connected to the agency. Now, the director warned that global energy security faces mounting risks. Europe, he said, is in a very difficult situation due to a series of historical strategic mistakes, including over-reliance on Russian gas. Obviously. While a huge amount of liquefied natural gas is expected to reach markets between 2026 and 2030, Birol stressed that markets alone cannot resolve the crisis. He urged international cooperation and diversification, predicting that nuclear will have a much stronger share in generation mix. Okay. Now I'm getting slowly impatient. And next story will break this impatience. Now, according to Financial Times, Russia is secretly preparing acts of sabotage around the British Isles. The Russian reconnaissance vessel Yantar spent 3 months in European waters collecting data on underwater cables critical for NATO's internet, energy, and military communications. Equipped with devices capable of intercepting data and planting explosives, the Yantar disguised itself as a civilian vessel as it circumnavigated Norway, crossed the English Channel, and even approached the Suez. So let's stay cool, calm, and collected. Now, we have a war. We have a war against Ukraine since 2014. We have a full-scale invasion and the so-called murderous special operations for 3+ years. This is happening in Europe. We had the story with the cables cut. Remember, the cables were cut and then they blamed Ukraine and then they blamed blah, blah, blah. We still have no idea what happened there. And most importantly, what was done to prevent it. Now you have during war, you have this sort of kind of vessel. And if you have this information now, what it was collecting and what this vessel actually represented, then you had that information also earlier. But you allowed it to what? To be there for 3 years? So when a lot of you are asking me here and on social media and emailing me and asking, why is Putin seeking affecting NATO? Why is he seeking this, bigger conflict? He's so weak. He's this, he's that. He can't afford it. Why? I want you to answer one question. Why not? Because these murderers, dictators, murderers are good in one thing. They're not good in strategy. They're not good in reality check. They're not good in, humanity, obviously, or planning long term, or seeing beyond their own ego. What they're good in is smelling weakness. And Europe is showing weakness. Forget NATO, you have Article 5, Trump will redo it. And by the way, I'm not against Trump or whatever. If he does a good thing for Ukraine, I'll be first to thank him and applaud. But it doesn't happen today. So what has been Europe doing for 3 years? Why didn't you use the frozen assets or, the benefits of those assets, right? Whatever you made money on those frozen the Russian assets. Why didn't you use that money? Yes, we have an announcement today. Let me read it. I got to quote it. That here, Brussels is pitching 140 billion for Ukraine using Russia's frozen assets. Today, 3 years plus into this war, because now you're feeling the pain. Now you know, oh my goodness, I got to do something. It's like these people, when they see somebody bleeding on the street, they're going to say, yeah, I know you're bleeding, but I got to get to my dinner because I have the reservation. It's very difficult to get the reservation in this restaurant because I really like my lifestyle, So listen, good luck. I told you repeatedly, this circus travels. The Russian orc circus travels. They're good in one thing, smelling weakness, and then following orders. These idiots are injected something. They're walking straight into Ukrainian drones, not even in Ukrainian soldiers, drones. They're bleeding, they get up, they walk until they're slaughtered. There's so many videos that I cannot show you here, but they came on motorcades, like whatever. They got slaughtered, hundreds of them. Over 1 million by today. But if you have weakness, Putin smells it. China smells it. So you are here scrambling for what? A week. Romania affected, Denmark affected, now Norway with all this cable crap affected, Lithuania, Latvia, everybody's affected and nobody's doing anything. We're now pitching 140 billion. You understand the word pitching? Yes, it doesn't mean it's signed. We have the 19th package of sanctions suggested. It's not signed or approved, it's suggested. Trump is open to providing to Ukraine howitzers that can strike for 1,500 kilometers. Open. I'm also open to a lot of things that I don't do. Where is the awareness of your own, behinds? Ukraine is the dam. Ukraine is what holds the aggression. And we kept repeating this for years. Ukraine falls, you fall. At this point, it's not the question of Ukraine, getting into EU or NATO. It's the question of convincing Ukraine to join Ukraine. NATO needs Ukraine at this point because you're sleeping. You're still in your comfortable lifestyle with work and dinners and bills and vacations and clothes and, the holidays are coming up. Get real. Wake up. Wake up in Europe and wake up in America too. Forget your lifestyle, honey bunny. Get up, start thinking, start planning. And I'm the last person. If you know me, you know me. I'm the last person to provide anxiety or whatever. And I'm not doing it. I'm telling you this because I really care. Information is my love language, factual information. And when I see what is happening, when you read the newsletters, it's very clear that we have to get past our comfort. We have to get past of what it has been and that it's inhumane to do this, to do that, and we have to stop coming up with excuses. Drones crossing territories, I'm speaking to Europeans, is not an accident if it happens every day, multiple times a day, in multiple occasions. And you look weak. And you look like a fool. And Putin knows it. That the next time it's not going to be a drone, it's going to be a missile. You're going to be scrambling again. Coming up with excuses. Not agreeing on NATO Article 5. It has 3 components. We're going to write letters. We're going to have a meeting. Anga was a summit. Next week, another summit in Paris. Another summit. A lot of summits. A lot of photos. Fantastic. Feeds the clickbait. Wake up. Now, in Kherson, for instance, in Ukraine, Russian forces bombarded the city of Kherson today, killing a 74-year-old woman and injuring at least 8 others. 15 bombs slammed the city, destroying 70 homes before further artillery fire followed. That's reality. Don't think it's too far. It's not. Now, high probability of large-scale Russian attack on Ukraine. Now, intelligence sources report that Russia is completing preparations for a massive strike. Redeployment of strategic aviation from Far East has been recorded, with multiple Tu-95MS and Tu-160M aircraft transferring to Olenia and Engels 2 airfields. These aircraft are reportedly being equipped with cruise missiles signaling imminent large-scale attacks. Now, Orban. Remember Orban? Ukrainian authorities reported the appearance of reconnaissance drones entering from Hungary. Early assessments suggest they were conducting surveillance of industrial infrastructure in border areas. And European Union still is incapable of withholding funds to Hungary. Remember last week I reported where Ursula von der Leyen, the president of European Commission, said, we actually now unfreezing those or defrosting or whatever you call it, funds because we want to really buy Orban's support. Remember that story? Here's your present that you bought yourself. Weakness provokes aggression. Being polite, being a gentleman or gentlewoman, having decency, all that is wonderful in peaceful conditions. But if you're decent, if you're a gentleman and gentlewoman, you protect your homeland as hell. That's where decency comes from. Decency is not only being polite to tita-ta. Decency also means fighting for what's yours and the generations to come. It has nothing to do with weakness. Heck no. Now, other story, Belarus deploys Oreshnik missile. Remember the Oreshnik missile that Russia actually had two prototypes. One crashed in Ukraine, one hit Dnipro, and then allegedly, according to them, now they have the production of Oreshniks. So Belarus has deployed the Oreshnik medium-range ballistic missile. Foreign Ministry head of Belarus, Maxim Rozhevnikov, announced. The key capabilities are basically to strike 5,500 kilometers. So the deployment adds a new layer of tension in Europe. And by the way, it's capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear warheads. NATO and EU leaders are already grappling with repeated Russian drone and MiG airspace violations. The arrival of Oreshnik means, as one analyst, European analyst, put it, quote, commanders and politicians will be losing sleep for the next few nights. On the good end, Romania and Ukraine are now discussing a joint drone development initiative to be funded under the EU's Safe Defense Credit Program. Now, please, EU, aside from Romania and everybody else, please, I mean, wake up. UK pledged to support Ukraine long term. Speaking at the UN General Assembly, the UK Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy reiterated Britain's stance. Quote, "Our message to Ukraine is clear. We will stand with you today, tomorrow, and 100 years from now." Now it's very poetic. Now, but in fact, what you do? We saw the king, we saw the Prime Minister Starmer, we hear what happens in the UK, and if you are from UK, please enlighten us. Doesn't really look very optimistic. Now, President Stubb of Finland, I was, first of all, honored to be at UN General Assembly, to be in several meetings, honored to have met him at the UN. My first impression got confirmed. It's a very respectable and straightforward gentleman. So Finnish President Alexander Stubb warned that the US may reduce its military presence in Europe in favor of the Indo-Pacific. I want to read again. Finnish President Stubb, who knows what's up, okay, warned that US may reduce, this is diplomatic talk, meaning reducing, okay, its military presence in Europe in favor of the Indo-Pacific. While U.S. troop numbers in Europe currently range from 70,000 to 90,000, Stubb stressed the importance of maintaining critical assets such as aircraft carriers and radar systems that are serviced by American troops. And now let's come back to the meeting in Pentagon next week. I understand. Listen, there was an NBC report. Oh, the meeting will be, what I'm referring to, that Haxas has called all the generals and military officials from all over the world to West Virginia, right? And the idea today in mainstream media is that they're meeting for less than an hour, and it will be all about enforcing the warrior ethos, and they're going to talk about the length of the beard and the trimming and exercises and healthy lifestyle. Now, if you do believe that, I got a notion to sell you. Really? From what I hear, again, this is my sources, it's not me who read things or did, but pretty reputable, and most likely I also have to foresee, probably we're not going to know what exactly was stated there unless the military goes against it, which I don't guesstimate will happen. They will try to keep their jobs, same as folks did in Germany 80 years ago. So this type of meeting is meant to first bring back military officials from Europe. They're coming back. And then from, again, what I know, this could be true, this could be not true. I'm sharing what I know, okay, what I hear. I don't read documents. That's what I hear from people who say they know, okay? turns out not to be true, I'll be first to admit it, but it is quite reputable, that they will be instructed to withdraw. Again, when I read the statement by President Stubb of Finland, who is not known to provoke anxiety and fear and whatever, but he decided to speak about it today, this aligns with what I hear about that meeting. I'll leave it here. When I know more, when I've seen some documents, I will let you know. Okay? Now, let's read some comments here. Sean is here. Hello. Ben says, what are the chances that Ukraine supplied with Tomahawks, and how much would that change the course of the war? I mean, it would be great, but Ukraine also has the flamingos and its own capabilities. All it needs is financing for it. So this is what's good about Ukrainians, that they didn't wait, right? They used the little time they had and the little finance they had to become stronger, and now actually lead the drone manufacturing capability, right? And if you didn't listen to my interview, by the way, with the senior national security advisor of Taiwan, it's just 11 minutes long. I really encourage you to watch it. It's on YouTube. Today, also in the newsletter, I will present the readout. So if you don't like watching or listening, you can also read. I did a whole, the entire readout of the conversation, the manuscript, essentially, or the script. And you can read everything there. So he said that, look, we admire Ukraine because that's the country that uses 2 weeks to produce a new, better drone, because they learn it's a lot of intelligence gathered, and the little finance used so much, right, and stretches so far. And so he actually complimented Ukraine, although obviously Taiwan is leader in semiconductors and now in AI, right? So really encourage you to watch it. Now, President Zelensky today addressed Ukrainians. It was a wide-ranging address. He highlighted counteroffensive success in Dobropirya with Russian losses exceeding 3,000 people. And that's what I started with, right? They're walking, they're getting slaughtered, they don't care. They're listening to their dear leader. And the dear leader is all he cares about is making history, one, but also attacking weakness. Now, rising Russian strikes on Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, Dnipro, and Kherson were today detected, and concerns about reconnaissance drones, of course, in Ukraine that came from Hungary. Now, as to international negotiations with Denmark, US, and Middle Eastern partners on drone defense, President Zelensky said there's progress. And as to sanctions pressure, he talked about expectations for the EU's 19 sanctions package and additional US steps. Quote, the only thing that can force this Russian virus of war to stop its strength is strength, right? So the only thing that can force this Russian virus of war to stop is strength, strong decisions, and strong assistance, end quote. Let's get back to questions. I think you had some good ones here. Hey, Graham. Okay, you seem to understand Canada's situation fairly well. Can you help me understand what Canada is doing in practical ways to help Ukraine, and what more I should be advocating for? Great question. What Canada does, like nobody else, is having troops in Latvia. You guys are there. It's about 2,500. Training Ukrainians, training everybody, making sure the Baltics are safe as far as it goes. My question here is, and that's what I, used my ways to push forward for, is what will happen with Canadian troops if this all manifests in US withdrawing from Eastern Europe? What's going to happen? Let's go further. Let's say US withdrew. Putin smells weakness. Europe is pooping its pants because US withdrew. Oh, I got to process, right? And Putin goes further. and Canadian troops get involved in one way or another, the Arctic is open. What's going to happen with the Arctic? If China, Russia, whoever starts flying drones over northern Canada, right? What's going to happen there? Who is going to protect it? Denmark, that is protecting its own territories right now in Greenland? Who physically is going to protect? NORAD, that is used to transform the migrants from the US to Colombia, El Salvador. Those are NORAD planes. So that's the question I would ask. As to what Canada can do, you already invest more into defense at an expense that many people don't like. I get it. But as to, support, I think what matters is really truthful information. Because, I'm not Canadian nor I live in Canada. From my angle, I feel that Canada, like many other countries, probably all, is facing a lot of propaganda and false information, false narratives that shape public opinion. And then ultimately, when it comes to elections, and politicians are really willing to be liked, then it influences their decisions. So what I would suggest, Graham, and it's a great question, and thank you for asking it, what you can do is spread factual information. Share articles, share videos like this one here, that people know what it is about and why your support in all ways is very much needed and also appreciated. So that would be really, really great to do. Okay. Chris says, oh yeah, Yantar has been snooping around for them since forever, right? And nobody said anything. They thought, what, this was a cruise? Sean says, well, look at my Friday. Just got a whole lot bright. Right. I feel you. Chris says, yeah, if the Russians get their hands on everything we send to Ukraine and force Ukraine to sign up for them, very much. That's my whole point. And thank you, Chris, for bringing this up, because it's not just occupying Ukraine, which is horrible and horrific, but it's also forcing Ukrainians to fight on your behalf. Even more so horrific on many levels, from psychological to historically, to physically, to geopolitically, to economically. It's disaster. Hi, Alex. Alex says, under Trump, who talks about leaving NATO? The U.S. government seems to be making clear it will do only the barest minimum that are forced to address Russian aggression in Ukraine. Do you think Europe sees this? Yes. I don't just think. I spoke to them. Yes. There was a meeting where people exit, right? They left the meeting 40 minutes early. I won't tell you more about that. And they did this. Yes. Also, Trump, I don't agree that Trump will leave NATO, because that screws for him the opportunity to impose veto. Veto is what stops this whole thing with drones. So, Sean says, with love of all things, I hope you didn't get caught up in escalator gate. No. Listen, by the way, the escalator never works in Trump Tower. I go there to use the bathroom sometimes, and it never works. So he must be used to not working escalators. Stubb is the epitome of real statesman. Yeah, and there were some more. Yeah. Makes sense. Having them in the US makes it easy to replace them with someone who comply, or not to replace at all. Are you familiar with Horodenko? That's where my grandfather is from. He left in 1923. Let me look it up, because let me look it up. A friend of mine, ex-military, was training soldiers in Ukraine. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank him. Thanks for ideas. So much disinformation here for sure. Indeed. Canada supports Ukraine. Yes. Tidy Whitey. I'm busy today, popping and real quick to say hi. I'll share with my friends, catch up and everything. Thank you. And I know you share, and I know you do film my BBC interview. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, let's move on. As to Putin's gaffes and promises. So, for kicks and giggles, Putin today hosted, what is it called officially? Nuclear Power Summit. And so there he welcomed a variety of leaders. And one of them was Nikol Pashinyan, who's prime minister of Armenia. Armenia, that is the warmonger in chief, invading Cambodia and Azerbaijan and whatever, right? And Narnia too. But all together, and this was something that I laughed with Armenians. I saw them at a delegation this week, and I said, well, what do? You can't stop. You're invading everybody. Next thing, you're going to invade the moon. And they were nervously giggling. But he called him by the wrong second name. If you're familiar with Ukrainian, Russian name structure, it's first name and your second name is your father's name. And it's sort of like shaped as to like Olga from this and this, right? So it's first name, second name, third name. And Putin fully known what his second name is, mispronounced it and called him by a wrong one. But then Putin promised that Russia would launch the world's first fully closed cycle nuclear power system by 2030. Claiming uranium reserves may last until 2090, though some experts say depletion could occur as early as 2060s. I would just encourage everybody not to allow them to even think about, anything. I mean, do you really trust Russia to create a nuclear power system and think that they will not misuse it for all other reasons? Give me a break. Speaking of Russia, here you go. China, Russia, Pakistan, Iran reject new Afghanistan bases. Remember, Trump wants to acquire the base that we had, and he signed the deal to withdraw from. So after a joint meeting in Beijing, foreign ministers, look, horseface made to Beijing so fast, foreign ministers of the four countries issued a statement opposing the reestablishment of military bases in and around Afghanistan, and quote, by the countries responsible for the current situation. Okay, well, the base was built by Soviet Union. That's one. And Trump thinks that's his. It's not. But who signed the deal to withdraw from Afghanistan? And here I will also blame President Biden. With all due respect. Yes, Trump signed the deal. Yes, it got in motion. Yes, President Biden came into power and said, okay, this is all in motion. I can't stop it. Rules, decency, rules, people. We see now how flexible our rules are. If you knew this wasn't a good thing, you should have stopped it. Especially the way we withdrew. Remember people jumping on planes on wheels? Not a good look. Not a good look. Signed by Trump, executed by Biden. Not a good look. Was less than smart. Now all these four are united. They signed an agreement now to collaborate on Afghanistan, all four of them. Again, who's there? China, Russia, Pakistan, Iran. And Pakistan was meeting with Trump yesterday at the White House. You think Trump knew about that? No. Now, also what comes out is that Russia aids China's Taiwan plans. Leaked Russian documents reveal that Moscow has agreed to train Chinese airborne battalion and supply equipment for potential operation against Taiwan. $580 million contract with a different type of fighting vehicles, guns, APCs, and parachute systems. Additional $210 million in amphibious equipment and training deals per UK think tank RUSI. Taiwan declared its readiness for aggression. Now, remember I told you we got this interview? Yes. Do you think we didn't talk about it? We did. So I really encourage you to watch this 11-minute interview because Dr. Lee explains it better than I can attempt to. But before you start laughing, because I know there was a lot of response like, what can Russia do? Orcs are stupid. They can, train Chinese? No way. Jose, all that. Orcs are stupid. We see it in action. People get slaughtered daily. But what you cannot dismiss is physical experience at war, right? Because think about it. Who from those who are able to teach you something could be at this point right? Being actively participating in conflicts, in war, in invasion, having gathered intelligence, who can share intelligence and their finds and takeaways and tips and whatever. In this case, Russia is pretty useful. When we say that Russians can teach because they're dumb, they do have data, which will be processed by the Chinese and then implemented into a training, right? Which then Russia will execute. Also, there's a lot of bluffing. When we talk about 580 million, 210 million, there will be amphibious equipment, fighting vehicles, whatever. This could also mean that China wants to collect whatever Russia has, reconstruct it, so they can enhance their own production, because they're pretty good in copy pasting in that regard. Now, remember how we have to understand how Russian media works? And lately, the administration here, when they say something, you got to flip it 180 and then it's some kind of true. Yeah? So Maria Zakharova, who's a spokesperson for Russian Foreign Ministry, accused Ukraine of preparing a false flag provocation by allegedly repairing Russian drones to attack NATO transport hubs in Poland and Romania. Analysts note Russia often uses such claims to set stage for its own escalations while attempting to shift blame. Now, those would be the operations against Poland and Romania, false flag operations. And if they say Ukraine will do it, certainly you kind of guesstimate that this is what they're planning. Now, today, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel addressed United Nations General Assembly. Well, not many of them, because many have left the building and booed him. Take a look.
Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall.
Cheers. Key lines of his speech included, "You won't force a Palestinian state down our throats, and we will not commit national suicide because you're weak. Israel protects the West from barbarians. Hamas carried out the largest attack on Jews since Holocaust." Netanyahu also urged viewers to scan QR code on his chest, claiming it would show why we fight and why we must win. Now, President Trump departed today. Well, he already returned. That's the only thing on his agenda, going to Ryder Cup, which is a golf tournament in upstate New York. Before that, he spoke to press where he said, I think we have maybe a deal on Gaza. That'll be number 8. Not bad. He solved 7 wars, according to him. This would be the 8th one. But we also heard 11 wars. One of them, Armenia and Cambodia. Asked about James Comey's indictment, Trump replied, there will be others. I mean, they're corrupt. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. Frankly, I hope there are others. He also dismissed concerns over Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth inviting those military leaders to global meeting. I think it's great, he says. Why is there something wrong with it? Why is that such a big deal? I mean, they're picnicking. Now, as to Comey indictment, former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted under Trump's Department of Justice. The prosecution is led by Lindsay Halligan. Who is she? Florida insurance attorney and former Miss Colorado finalist who has never prosecuted a case. Comey, long a political target for Trump since his dismissal in 2017, now faces criminal proceedings and widespread concerns over politicization of the DOJ. How ironic. Legal experts warn the appointment of a first-time prosecutor with no criminal experience raises red flags about fairness and competency in one of the nation's most high-profile cases. For President Trump, however, analysts suggest that the trial outcome may be secondary. The indictment itself serves both retribution against an official who investigated him and a warning to other perceived political enemies. Now, Comey posted the following message on his Instagram. Do I have this message? I should have that message. Let me try. Is this one? It's a cat I want to show you later. Where's my Comey message?
I don't want for.
No. That's Hitler. Okay, well, in his message, essentially, he says, I am innocent. I believe in our justice. I believe in our system. I will surrender, but I believe that truth will come out, so I'm happy to have a trial. Now, as to quick national news, DOJ now targets Soros and Open Society foundations. The Justice Department has directed more than half a dozen U.S. attorneys' offices to examine George Soros's Open Society foundations, the New York Times reports. The agency even suggested possible charges that prosecutors might pursue against George Soros, including arson and terrorism sponsorship. Open Society awards money to groups that promote human rights, democracy, and equity. Soros himself has donated hundreds of millions of dollars to Democrats over the last 2 election cycles. In August, President Trump argued Soros should be charged under racketeering law, historically used to prosecute mafia bosses. By the way, Open Society Foundation said that this is a politically motivated hit on them, and they will be fighting against it. Now, also, Trump is caring about your health, and now he's providing also advice. Today, he repeatedly stated that pregnant women should not be taking Tylenol. Well, why don't I show you the tweet? I mean, why not? Here you go. Pregnant women don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary. Don't give Tylenol to your young child for virtually any reason. Break up the MMR shot into 3 totally separate shots, not mixed. Take chicken pot, shot separately. Chicken pox, right? Chicken pox shot separately. That's nice. Hepatitis be shot at 12 years old or older, and importantly, take vaccine in 5 separate medical visits. Take care of your titas or you're going to get hepatitis. Well, this health advice is not supported by science or medical experts. Okay, so national security and Pentagon restructuring. DNI Tulsi Gabbard has stopped publishing the annual report on global challenges. Former officials said issues such as climate change and pandemic risk were considered politically inconvenient. The Pentagon's new top priority will mirror Trump's America First agenda, focusing on the Western Hemisphere, officials told Military Times. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has overseen a reduction of more than 60,000 civilian Pentagon employees in just 9 months, a 7.6 cut, meeting his goal of 5 to 8%. As to business and culture, Amazon agreed to pay billions of dollars to settle claims that it tricked millions of customers into signing for Prime. Starbucks announced plans to close hundreds of 18,000 stores plus in North America as part of corporate overhaul. Now, good news, Sinclair Broadcast Group will end its preemption of Jimmy Kimmel Live, allowing the late night show to return to its ABC affiliates tonight. As to New York, Governor Katie Hochul has directed state agencies to fast-track procurement of $5 billion in wind and solar projects before federal subsidies expire under President Trump's new tax law. Check the comments real quick. I believe Netanyahu knew of and intentionally ignored intel of 1007 attack. Glorious walkout. Netanyahu doesn't even know Jewish history, or rather, he denies it as running some playbook and Reich did. That health advice is not exactly legal either. He's not a doctor, right? Someone will stage 18 syphilis should not give medical advice. The Supreme Court just allowed the regime to block more Congress allocated funds. In your opinion, would there be any reason for Democrats to help avoid a shutdown? Do you think they will? It's a slippery slope. Let's talk about it. On one hand, Trump is demanding Democrats to agree to cut Medicaid and all kinds of services. So agreeing to that will have long-term repercussions, right? He's going to say, oh, you're supporting essentially the whole notion of Project 2025 and the big, beautiful / ugly bill. But if you agree to that, to keep the funding, you're actually agreeing to only part of it because it will eliminate a lot of services. Now, if you go with a shutdown, then the whole federal system is frozen or actually broken up. There was a call by the Trump administration for federal agencies to prepare not just to freeze the employees and their employment, but actually to fire them in masses, which then lets me to believe that the shutdown and the way the Republican side navigates it is to not leave Democrats with any other option but to go with a shutdown. One. Now, if we do have that shutdown and federal employees start getting fired, and then, we police, yeah, big question mark. Medical services, big question mark. Who's overseeing the borders, big question mark. Also, don't forget, Pentagon budget starts when? Pentagon, our defense budget, doesn't start on January 1st. It starts on in October, right? So that is also very much related. So if there's a shutdown, which I think the Trump administration, the Republican Party, the GOP, is sort of producing it towards too. We have the shutdown, everything falls apart, we have no budget, the military budget. Look, we have to defend the mainland. Then it will come very close to martial law and utilizing funds and declaring Trump as the only one sole decision maker and weaponizing everything around it. And if you ask me, I would think this is more probable than the reverse. We will see. That's on Wednesday. So I think we will know more Monday, Tuesday, but do I feel there's going to be something good coming out of it? We'll see. I do hope. I do have faith and hope. And I hope that this will be, but preparing for the worst. Trump designed, says Michael, atheists and socialists as terrorists. I guess I'm terrorist now. Yeah, and it's also, creating a public opinion, right? That's when I was just speaking about Canada, right? When we have so much disinformation, we are really in this disinformation with a snowballing effect. And I want to put it into numbers. China and Russia. By the way, this statistics I know by the head of the institution that does those statistics. Yesterday at the Clinton Global Initiative, he was there, and then we spoke about him. Anyway, China and Russia together have invested $3 billion in propaganda campaign this year alone. Out of those, 100 million is only for Moldova elections. So when there is weakness and they know how to also create public opinion and affect it, they do it. Also think about this, the statistics, right? This was shared by the head of Moderna, that this year, since Trump became president and cut the funding for medical research, China has put together and patented 50% more scientific research and innovation than United States. For next year, they guesstimate the ratio to be 1 to 10. 10 by China, 1 by US. And so this whole idea of us to promoting our employment, right? So what we want to make the socks and the sneakers here because we don't like China, Indonesia, Vietnam, and all them doing this, and India, of course. So we're going to bring those jobs home and completely lose the jobs that promoted United States as the democratic superpower, but very much supported by innovation. We are the innovators. China is copy-pasting. But now we're losing our intel. We're losing our best people. Scientists, medical profession, IT folks with the H-1B, $100,000 extra fee. We're losing people who made America actually great. And we will force people who are very much not interested in the jobs that will be coming back from China, if any time that will happen, we'll force this onto our people, and we'll lose people who actually we rely upon for our innovation purposes. It's very interesting, right? So, as to US and India, U.S. trade negotiators have told Indian counterparts that reducing purchases of Russian oil is crucial to lowering tariffs and finalizing bilateral trade deal, Reuters reports. India has said they're not going to stop buying Russian oil. Argentina prepares for U.S. bailout. The Argentina economy continues to sputter. The United States is preparing $20 billion bailout package, according to officials familiar with discussions. And this was stated by Besant. I was at this dinner. It was a private dinner. It's was done by Atlantic Council. I'm grateful for them for accrediting me. And they were giving the Global Citizen Awards. And first it was Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA. He was introduced by Tom Brady. Giggly, giggly, giggly. You get the point. Then Scott Bessent, our Secretary of Treasury, introduced President of Argentina, Milei. Milei came out, chanted MAGA, 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 make America, what was it? It was something otra vez. So anyway, he spoke in Spanish, and so chanted MAGA in Spanish and English. Everybody chanted. Infantino chanted. Everybody chanted. It was obviously it was a MAGA event, and Scott Bessent was there, and Michael Waltz, who is now our U.S. ambassador to UN, was there. A bunch of other Trump administration officials, and it was very difficult to process. And I was there, and it was just French media, like the editor of Le Monde, others who were recording, and we sat there, we're like, it's a MAGA event, okay, we get it, but it's like to see that in front of you. Sarkozy was there, the former president of France, who is now indicted and has to spend 5 years in jail, but he is filing a motion to dismiss. So all of this it was a weird experience. I mean, chants and the hand gestures and the opera singers and all that stuff. And then they were honoring Emmanuel Macron, and I shared with you the full speech, and this was just great. I mean, he came out, and when I spoke to French guys, right, they were like, we don't know why he's here. And I said, what do you expect him to say? They're like, oh, probably it's going to be something vanilla. You know, he's going to see it as a diplomatic occurrence, blah, blah, blah. Macron came out. He said, look, I wondered why I'm, honored next to my friends, Milei and Infantino, but I will use this, opportunity to talk about what I think is important. Hence, I will neglect the speech prepared for my team, by my team. And then he spoke about climate, that you need to invest. And he started actually addressing United States administration essentially by saying, look, you can be patriotic, but you cannot be a nationalist. Nationalist who wants to punish your allies, who wants to promote isolation, because that's not how this world works. And he spoke about Ukraine, he spoke about Gaza, he spoke about Israel. He really pointed out every single MAGA point and sales point and combat it. So I want to encourage you. I posted it. It's 11 minutes long. Please watch the speech. And he spoke in English. Also, there's subtitles. So U.S. court rejects DJI appeal. So a federal judge on Friday rejected a bid by DJI, the world's largest drone maker, to be removed from U.S. Defense Department list of companies allegedly tied to Beijing's military. So all of this will be connected to Peter Thiel. DJI is not. DJI is dismissed. Israel's ground offensive expands. Now, to put it there, I don't know if DJI is connected to Beijing. If it is, it should be dismissed. Okay, so Israel's ground offensive expands. Now, we're talking about facts. All right, so Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas told the UN via video link, because he wasn't granted visas, that Palestinians would not leave Gaza and vowed Hamas would not govern the territory after the war. And in its new ground operation, the Israeli military is flattening parts of Gaza City block by block, the Times found in an on-the-ground investigation. Trump privately assured Arab and Muslim majority leaders that he would block any attempt by Israel to annex the West Bank. Microsoft disabled some services to Israel's defense ministry, citing evidence that they were being used for surveillance of Palestinians. And Europe's anger over the conflict is spilling into culture, with broadcasters set to vote next month on whether to bar Israel from Eurovision Song Contest. I spoke about China's dominance. Okay, Russian and Chinese propaganda. Okay, so Germany will invest 35 billion euros, which is equivalent $41 billion in space-related defense projects by 2030. This was announced by Defense Minister Boris Pistorius. The plan is aimed at boosting Germany's technological independence and protecting its orbital assets amid the militarization of space. Why is it important? Because yesterday the report came out that the Russians are hijacking German satellites that are used by German army. China's sixth-generation fighter leak, what may be a major leak out of China, features the clearest photos yet of Shenyang Aircraft Corporation, JXDS, also referred as J-50. The heavy sixth-generation stealth fighter design appears to feature no tails, thrust vectoring, and streamlined, sleek profile. Analysts say the leak offers the most detailed look yet at China's next-generation combat aircraft ambitions. And so yesterday, Trump met with Erdoğan in the White House. This is the first visit by a Turkish leader in the last 6 years. Trump urged Turkey to stop buying Russian oil, calling it essential to pressuring Moscow toward peace. Erdogan, in turn, is seeking U.S. approval to purchase F-35 fighter jets. And then Trump said, look, I feel like I can convince Erdogan, and then he will be, quote, successful in buying the things he wants to buy, meaning the F-35s. Now, I do have a video how this meeting went down, so just take a look.
I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues this rampage against Ukraine. And they've been fighting. They've lost millions of lives already. And for what? You know, for what? It's disgraceful. And I said yesterday, let it keep going because their economy is absolutely terrible right now. And I think it's a shame that they're doing that, killing a lot of people unnecessarily. 7,818 people were killed last week. Mostly military people, their people, and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. But it's such a waste of human life, and so he ought to stop. Putin ought to stop. President Erdoğan is very respected by both of them. Everybody respects Erdoğan. They really respect Erdoğan. I do. And I think he could have a big influence if he wants to. Right now, he's very neutral. He likes being neutral. So do I like being neutral. But he's somebody that if he got involved, the best thing he could do is not buy oil and gas from Russia. If he did that, that would be probably the best thing. He knows Putin like I know Putin. I thought Putin, I settled, as you know, 7 wars, and it's probably more than that if you really want to know.
Okay, we have some news that just came out. So NASA scientists are seriously discussing a nuclear strike against an asteroid, 2024 YR4. The object has roughly 4% chance of colliding with the moon in 2032. A strike could loft a massive cloud of dust and debris into space, potentially disabling satellites and disrupting communications on Earth. 2 options are being considered after the asteroid's orbit, or alter the asteroid's orbit, or blow it apart on approach with a yield of about 1 megaton. The first method is safer for the moon, but it carries the risk of unintentionally redirecting the object towards Earth. This is NASA by Sean Duffy. Okay. In other news, Lukashenko and Putin have announced that they will build a nuclear power plant in Belarus to supply electricity to temporarily occupied Ukrainian territories. Oh, please. How long time do you need to do that? It's probably going to blow up us, with NASA and Sean Duffy by then. It's difficult. Just difficult. Okay. Exactly. Third option, just let it be. Literally. Yeah. Okay. Trump also met yesterday with Pakistan. He hosted Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Army Chief Asim Munir at the White House, continuing his push to strengthen U.S.-Pakistan ties. The Pakistan that just agreed with the ties. Are we talking about like physical ties? That Pakistan, yeah, they just agreed with China and Russia and Iran to go against U.S. plans in Afghanistan. Great. The two countries signed a trade agreement in July, even as Trump has imposed heavy tariffs on India, Pakistan's regional rival. Yesterday's meeting was closed to the media, but Sharif office said he thanked Trump for the deal and invited him to visit Pakistan. NATO launched a Neptune Strike 25-3. NATO conducted this long-planned exercise showcasing high-end maritime strike capabilities and integrated air-land operations. It involved 20-plus surface vessels and submarines, special operations forces from several nations, and numerous aircraft. More than 10,000 sailors, soldiers, aviators, and Marines were involved. The area of operations was in Central Mediterranean and Adriatic up to North and Baltic Seas, and this happened between September 22nd to 26th, so this week. In North Sea, the carrier strike group, led by USS Gerald Ford, operated alongside U.S. destroyers, USS Winston Churchill and USS Mayhem, and French frigate FS Bretagne, Britannia, whatever, and the Danish frigate HDMS Niels Juel. So, that's what happened there. As to Somalia, Somalia is seeking recovery funds. Their president, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, emphasized the country's progress after decades of conflict, including battles against al-Shabaab. Our country, he says, is recovering, our GDP is growing, and our revenue is expanding. He pledged that Somalia would not relapse into violent process. Now, Netherlands and Uganda have a migration deal. The Netherlands and Uganda signed a letter of intent to establish a transit hub in Uganda for asylum seekers whose cases were rejected in the Netherlands. The agreement would apply to migrants from countries neighboring Uganda. The deal comes as the Netherlands prepares for its elections next month, triggered by collapse of its governing coalition over migration disputes. And lastly, Ecuador, they're voting on their new constitution. Ecuador's Electoral Council approved plans for November 16 referendum. And listen to this, because that circles travels. Remember? The proposed charter will amend the constitution, and it's championed by President Daniel Noboa, that would expand the authority of security forces to fight crime, reduce due process rights for citizens, and allow voters to permit foreign military bases in Ecuador. Most importantly, well, not most importantly, with all due respect, what we're looking forward to this weekend, Sunday, is the election in Moldova. So we'll see what will happen then. If Maya Sandu can win with advantage, she doesn't have to build a coalition, because other than her, all the parties are pro-Russian. Today, one party was banned from even participating in the election. Same, remember when it happened in Romania, when the pro-Russian candidate was banned after the first round of elections and triggered new rounds. So we'll see what will happen here. But certainly for Putin, this is very important to have his base in Moldova. Remember what happened to Georgia. So that all is part of one strategy. And again, I will keep you posted on everything that happens until Monday. Monday, I will be live at 5 p.m. Eastern. And here, I will also send you the newsletter today. And if you didn't catch up, please read the newsletters from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I recapped the UNGA 80 day 1 through day 4 with things, what happened there, what I saw, what I listened to, whatnot. Now, as to UNGA, my analysis and my angle, please type your questions so I can, if you're interested in a particular country or question or, subject, please do so. But meanwhile, my takeaway is, I saw, I would say, two people that really struck me in a very sort of unexpected way, right? Of course, being with leaders in the room, seeing them behaving, not just having speeches and being on television is one story. Also having off the record conversations was great. Asking senior national security advisor of Taiwan off the record about their preparation and to the depth of it, and what the intelligence they're getting about invasion and all that. So that mattered. But obviously, I have to state that President Zelensky, First Lady Olena Zelenska are very legitimate, are very exhausted looking, but they're working 24/7. They're sincere in their approach, and they're fighting for their country, for themselves, for our people. I'm Ukrainian-born U.S. citizen, so they're really doing their all, and his team. Very much focused on problem solving rather than ta-ti-ta-ta. The microphone didn't work when First Lady Zelenska was speaking at the Women's Summit, which is the first one where different organizations that are, it's not Women's Summit, it's First Spouses Summit, right? So there's different organizations that are including first spouses and what they called soft and smart power, right? The hard power are those in, leaders, the heads of state, but the soft and smart power is in the spouses, so they can address, equality and economic also access to funds for different communities and whatnot, and also for instance, returning children, Ukrainian children that are stolen by Russia, that are facing this stupid Russian propaganda and regime. And by the way, I do have a video on that. So in this kindergarten, kids were playing how, there's a war, and then one of them, kid, was pretending to be a mother who was told the news that her son passed, and they made a whole dance out of it. Just take a look at it. It's very weird, but visualizing is really something. So you got the point. To your point, I think Sean did made the comment. Yes, Diana Fox Carney very hard. Yes. And by the way, Canada organized the meeting for Bring Kids Back. This is an initiative by President Zelensky, but Canada did host and organize it. I was there. It was fantastic. Diana was fantastic. I met her on the street afterwards. Very kind, very gentle, very smart. Great. So absolutely, I do agree. Now, as to what stood out to me, and I think I shared it on Blue Sky the first day, that there's very genuine support by Baltic states, and this was first day of UNGA, genuine support by Iceland, Ireland, Finland, Norway, Sweden. You get the point? Those who could be affected next. Poland was absent. The first day, Poland focused on making deals with China, opening the border, and advocating for Chinese protection against Russia. Taiwan side was laughing when I asked about that feedback, and they said, just ask us. We have experience. So, yeah. What stood out to me positively? Two people. I don't get impressed by politicians. I see through it, and I respect. I always have respect, but But two people who stood out: Macron, President Macron, in that speech, but also before, not being afraid to confront people on and off the record, very straightforward, very pleasant, very friendly, but still sticking to the game. I know he's facing issues domestically, but internationally, very respected. Also, Trump blocking the streets. Then Macron ended up walking around Manhattan, taking pictures with everybody, literally with baristas. He was getting coffee, whatever. He made a gig out of it, and he had fun. Erdoğan was blocked, and he's like, I'm leaving. God damn it. But this was a different UNGA. Like other presidents, including Trump's first term, it was different. We didn't block half of the city. It was less policed. This was like a whole, like a war zone. I mean, there's no car passing, like half of the Manhattan. So I had to show my passport 5 times to cross 2 blocks. So Macron, legit. Somebody who I'm afraid to say didn't know. I mean, I knew, but didn't pay attention to speeches. First Lady of Lithuania, Diana Nausėda. Incredible. I mean, for the first meeting of the first spouses, she delivered a speech so straightforward. So not just like anti-Russia or whatever, pro-humanity, calling a thing, calling the Russians who they are in their actions, pointing this out, standing with Ukraine, standing with children, recognizing Ukrainian women and teachers. The first event was about education and how there are schools that are built underground, and they're now very cheery and happy that they now have protection, like anti-nuclear situation. There were the first teacher to teach in such school. She was there. She got standing ovation when she spoke about her intention, why she's there. We saw videos, and I'll share the film of how Ukrainian kids are, not just learning and getting the education, but 7 million kids are affected. Every 7th school has been bombed. And the teachers are trying to also cheer them up. And they say they age beyond their years. They start with this little smiley faces, and they're like, there's my smiley face, pick a smiley face for you, and we will force ourselves to feel happy. And then they bring the portraits of fallen soldiers, their fathers, to school meetings as a parent meeting. You have to watch it. I mean, I cried 4 times. Everybody cried a lot of times. I will be interviewing the founder of the NGO Asvitoria, who put that meeting together, and who is Asvitoria is the biggest NGO that builds schools and promotes education in Ukraine. So we'll learn more about it. It's a fantastic founder there. Canada, fantastic meeting. Carney, straightforward. Diana Fox Carney, straightforward. Of course, Zelensky and Zelenska were there and also spoke about it. Other nations as well. Again, First Lady of Lithuania spoke very straightforward. Just incredible in terms of speaking and advocating and just standing for what's right. And she said, look, education is usually not something we discuss in terms of we have it or not. We talk about bettering it or having more access to it. But this is the point where you have the entire generation of Ukrainians not having any education. And also the other thing, when we talk about recovery, what do you do psychologically? What will that generation's life look like? Because those children, right? And she said the childhood has a limitation time-wise, so you have to act in time, right? Because they will become adults with a very damaged psyche. So what will happen then? So then First Lady Zelenska put a meeting together advocating for mental health. And she said, this is not something we have to deserve. This is something that we have to grant first and foremost ourselves. And we have to fight for it, right? And advocate for it. So that is what about soft and smart power. Then there was the Crimean platform. First time hosted at the UN. There were the leaders, the former leader, who's hero of Ukraine. He went to jail multiple times. He's a Soviet dissident, Jemilev, and he was there. He's 85, and who knows what Russia is. And Putin asked him when he was invading Crimea, asked him to advocate for Russia and said, I will take care of you. And he said, heck no. Right. And then I love that President Zelensky started with, Crimea is not just part of the, part of Ukraine. And we see Western side saying that, oh, Crimea is gone. Let's just talk about Donbass and other parts. But that they're indigenous people, the Crimean Tatars, who lived in that land. This is their home. There's no other home. And so they have been either pressured into obeying and staying there or had to flee, right? And they're also facing all kinds of pressure. So this was incredible. But really, 2 people who I didn't expect to speak up so fully and straightforward. Maybe 3. Macron, First Lady of Lithuania, Nausėda, and Stop was great. President of Finland, talking about the lack of transparency when it comes to Security Council and the veto power that Russia still has, essentially. Also, in terms of speeches at UNGA, President of Colombia called out the actions by United States when it comes to anti-migrant, steps that we're taking, and deportations, and how illegal they are, and bombing Venezuelan boats. And he called for investigation of the Trump regime, as he called. So that U.S. delegation left the hall. When he was speaking later, Colombian delegation's press conference was canceled, either by them or UN. I don't know, but the fact is it was canceled. So that. Now, to your questions. Tony says, hi, Tony. Compared to when you were working in the UN before, what is general mood now? Somber. When I was there, and my point was, focus was on Middle East. The issue with Israel was there. This was before Hamas took over. This is when Abbas was there crying, asking the Western world to, take us over, really come and save us. That was a very difficult part. Côte d'Ivoire was at that point. We were sending soldiers, including Ukrainians. So that was difficult. But there were specific issues, right? Then the pirates in Somalia took Ukrainians. There was a big thing. Gaddafi was taken down and all that. So, now it's somber because it's a world situation. It's like one is triggering the other, and everyone is involved, and everybody is sort of like, when you get on roller coaster, Tony, maybe and you're like, I want to be there, it's fun, and then you sit there and you realize, god damn, I'm gonna go down and up and flip, and you're like, oh my god, whoa. And so it begins, and you can't stop it, but all you can do is hold on, and it's gonna end, and you just have to survive until it ends, but you got to hold on. And that's what I feel like the whole notion was, how can each hold on to each other, together, alone, and that was sort of a thing. We know it's going to be shitty. How can I survive? How can my country sort of make it? Sean says, Giorgia Meloni gave a pretty solid speech, as expected. Alex says, complex systems. Yeah. And it's also, it's complex, but it's also very simple. And that is, and we're going to end now. That's where I began. Decency doesn't mean weakness. Being a gentleman or a gentlewoman, however you identify yourself, doesn't mean to be weak, doesn't mean to be a pushover, doesn't mean to be all like, okay, whatever, I obey. No. Decency, being a gentleman, gentlewoman, or whoever you are, is standing for your rights, but most importantly, for your principles. And one of your principles should be to defend your territory, land, family, business, well-being, life, and fight for it. Only traitors and weaklings are obeying and giving up and are, shifting as the crazy power comes in. Being strong and being decent and being wonderful also means fighting for it. And I don't encourage anybody to fight physically for something unless you are in that situation, and God bless you, and I'm for you and with you. But fight in terms of consuming right information, sharing factual information, learning, becoming literate in identifying when you're taking for a ride by propaganda machines and when you are consuming actual information. Seeking truth, seeking those who are not speaking at you, but speaking with you, presenting facts where you can I can make my own opinion. My intention is that after this live stream, you can go and still think about something. You're like, I didn't know that. Now it kind of makes sense. And then you keep thinking about it, provoking your thought process for you to make better decisions. I'm not here telling you did. No, I'm presenting facts. I'm connecting the dots. You make decisions. My point is to seek questions and ask questions, seek answers that will ultimately help you make better decisions. That is all I do. That is my love language, as I call it. So consume information that matters. Shut down sources, and it could be still funny and all. But if you feel anxious, if you feel like you end up having more questions than answers, this is not a good situation. This is a marathon. You have to take care of you so you can take care of yours. So please be wise. I know we're having the weekend and a lot of questions about next week. Take care of you. Do something for you that elevates you, okay, and adds to your well-being. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm exhausted. I'm going to be like this cat. I'm going to show you this funny video. Take a look. It's supposed to have a sound. I don't know what happened. But so anyway, he's like real life Garfield. Wakes up, goes to bed right away. So that's my plan for the weekend. I don't know what yours is. Comment. But whatever it is, I hope you spent more time with the way you want to spend it. Alone, with others, loved ones, whatever floats your boat. Just make sure to get some more energy. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I'm going to send you the newsletter right away. Please watch again. Please watch the interview with Taiwan's defense minister. These folks are about to be invaded. Get his point of view. It matters, right? When we learn about people, when we listen to them, when we realize that their pain is same as our pain, the circus travels, it really matters, especially as we are bombarded with Chinese propaganda and they're so like in the light of everybody acting obnoxiously. They look like very strategic and somehow very tolerant, but learn what they stand for. And if you haven't watched this, I also have this tour of United Nations. I took you inside the United Nations right before the General Assembly, showed you gifts, rooms, chambers. So it's just a 5-minute video. You can take a look and travel with us. And then, of course, for curating culture, I have one episode about Shabazz Center by Malcolm X, exactly the place where he was assassinated. This is now the center run by his one of his daughters. First was about Museum of Peace by Rarick. Never returned back, advocated for peace, advocated for preserving historical and treasures, cultural treasures. And he put together the Rarick agreement, and which then became the foundation of UNESCO. So those 3 episodes are there, and we're going through that museum with the director of the museum. So please watch. There's some content available, and I'm grateful for you for being here. Morgan says, thanks, all very informative. Thank you. Thank you, Just Lindy. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much. Love and decency will prevail, and we will be stronger. And on the other side, once evil is defeated. Amen to that, Sean. Amen to that. Let's finish on this note. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, everybody. All right. Have a very peaceful weekend. I'm on Blue Sky posting all the time, on Twitter less, because so we'll see each other there, and we see each other here on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Have a peaceful weekend.